IBM CEO Jenny Rometty, former VMware founder Diane Greene, Yahoo CEO Marissa Mayer. These are just some of the names that make up the mere 5% of women serving as CEOs of a major tech company. And yet, according to a study by Boston-based Quantopian, Fortune 1000 companies led by women produced equity returns 226% better than the S&P 500.
Early exposure to, say, a particular food or environment can have a profound effect on our point of reference. In the case of technology and young girls, that exposure could be the great equalizer later in the workplace. Women used to represent a significant amount of all computer science graduates in the 1980s, as much as 40%. Then something happened. In the 1990s, the number of women attaining computer science degrees decreased, while the number of their male counterparts increased. Women would surge again in the early 2000s and then drop off substantially from 2006 and on. Today, women make up a mere 18% of computer science graduates, and that's cause for concern, especially since technology touches every aspect of our lives. The U.S. Department of Labor projects that by 2020, there will be 1.4 million computer specialist job openings, but at current graduation levels, women will only fill about 3% of those jobs.
Kathryn Petralia is one of those select few that's made it to C-level status. She's co-founder and chief operating officer of Cabbage Incorporated, a so-called unicorn company. And she's shaking up the e-commerce business, as you'll see in today's Executive Profiles.
What was going on in your background that got you interested in playing with technology?
Honestly, my parents gave me a computer. And it's funny, I've talked to people about, women in technology and why there are so few women in technology, and I think it's because they're just not exposed to it. I've never written code. I've never been interested from that perspective, but I've always appreciated what technology could bring to life, to business, to any experience that we're going to have. And so I think my appreciation stems from my exposure at a very young age.
When did it dawn on you that, hey, wait a minute, I think I want to be a technology entrepreneur, and I really like the financial services piece? What were sort of the building blocks and the inflection points that got you there?
So it was really the internet. So in 1994, I was in graduate school studying, I was going to be an English professor. That was my original career path.
Of course, it all makes a lot of sense now.
I think what happened is I was involved with a company that was building software, data compression software that could be used to allow for the transfer of software over the internet. So instead of using the 14 Windows 95 CDs you needed to download to install the operating system, you could actually download it. Right. And I was like, oh, that internet thing sounds kind of cool. And it was pretty early on, so I thought to myself, what other things could you use this for? So I wound up building a company that put catalogs online so that consumers could buy from multiple catalogs, sort of like what SkyMall is today, but they could buy from multiple catalogs with a single shopping cart. Right. And then from there, I wound up becoming exposed to some financial technology companies when I was doing internet consulting a couple years later, and it just all sort of, steamrolled from there.
So that first conference, so you and Rob Frohon were sort of the first, I guess you were the founders of Cabbage, correct? Is that a fair?
It was me and Rob and Mark Gorlin. There were three of us.
And Mark Gorlin, that's
yes.
right. What was that first meeting like? I mean, was this sort of sitting at a whiteboard trying to figure it out, or was there something already built that you were ready to go with?
Oh, I wish.
Yeah.
No, it was Rob's idea. He basically had been interacting with eBay's API for a totally different purpose, to identify the likelihood that items listed were counterfeit or fraudulent. And it sparked an idea of, wow, could you use that really rich transaction data to underwrite a small business for a loan? And he called me up and said, hey, what do you think? And I said, that's a pretty good idea. And I knew that consumer lending had been automated for 2 decades. Right. But small business lending, which I didn't know, was not. So we wound up doing something very unique in the space without even realizing that's what we were doing. And then Rob also knew Mark separately, and Mark was really instrumental with helping us raise money early on and sort of get the company off the ground. So it was just more of a process. It wasn't like one day we said, okay, here, we're starting a business. Right. It's just you realize all of a sudden that that's what you're doing.
Who's the typical customer for you?
It's really funny. We started out with online commerce and businesses selling on eBay, because that's where we could get the data in real time, which is very important from an underwriting perspective. Yep. And we quickly moved to expanded to all small businesses. So today we have a couple of concentrations in construction, in medical businesses like physicians' offices. We have marketing firms. We still have a strong retail presence, but honestly, it represents every type of small business that's seeking less than $250,000 in capital.
And it's great that this is headquartered here in Atlanta. You know, so much of the great technology companies tend to come out of Silicon Valley and other parts around the United States. Are we a cool tech town? I
think we're becoming a cool tech town. Okay. We've actually been a tech town for a really long time,
right.
But nobody's known about it. When we were raising money, we must have answered the question, oh, I love this business, but why are you in Atlanta? We have tons of great talent in Atlanta. It's a great place to live. It's a great place to raise your kids. And people are just learning about it now.
So what was the origins of fintech here? Is it because you had the Equifaxes of the world? Was it the IT infrastructure here? What was going on?
So in the late 50s, the Fed tested automated payments in the Atlanta region. And so as a result, that technology around automating money movement grew up in Atlanta. And therefore, that's why we have all the payment companies who are here. I mean, and of course, it fed and fostered companies like Equifax. And now we have companies moving here. Total Systems has been, they're in Columbus, but they've been in the Atlanta area for a long time. But now First Data is here. Fiserv has a big presence here. Sure. So you're seeing lots more companies decide that Atlanta needs to be their hometown too.
Do you have any good stories of small businesses who you talk about who've succeeded as a result of Kabbage?
So we get emails every day from businesses saying, oh my goodness, I can't thank you enough for what you've done. I wouldn't have been able to grow my business or take advantage of this opportunity. Right. I think most of our customers are using the capital to grow, right, because they have some opportunity, whether it's hiring seasonal staff or whether it's getting an inventory purchase or expanding their space. My dog's veterinarian happens to be here. She does these blood tests to determine what your dog's sensitivities are.
Right.
And the machine itself was $20,000. Right. And she was sending thousands of dollars a month worth of work away to another office, and she couldn't do it herself. So by borrowing $20,000 and buying this machine herself, within 6 months she'd already paid it off and was generating additional revenue that she would never have had access to otherwise. And that's one tiny little example of how an equipment purchase, for example, moved her into the next level to be able to get more customers and not send away business.
So tell me about the Kabbage office. Tell me what it's like to go to work at Kabbage in the morning.
Well, it's super fun, first of all. I mean, it's very open, can be noisy, but nobody has an office, so it's all just desks in the middle of the area. They're all like the sit-stand desks, so people can choose how they want to work. And it's just very open and chatty, and you always see people huddle together.
Advice for young people, especially women, who want to get into this technology space.
If they're brand new to the job market and this is something that they want to do and they don't necessarily have, college training in that particular area, I would say get an entry-level job at a company that you find interesting and ask a lot of questions and, do a lot of research and take courses. There are a lot of really cool online courses you can take and programs you can participate in, like General Assembly, which we have here even in Atlanta,
right,
and ways that they can get more information. Networking is so critical. I've been really impressed with the number of women who have emailed me out of the blue and said, hey, I really love what you've done and I'd love to talk to you about how you did that. I wouldn't have done that in a million years when I was 22 years old. I would never have just randomly, it just wouldn't have occurred to me. So I think it's really important to network and to talk to people about how they got to where they want to be. But I think the most important thing is to keep an open mind and to take advantage of opportunities when they present themselves. If I hadn't done that, then I would be an English professor right now.
I was going to say you'd be a great English professor.
Kathryn Petralia landed number 2 in Inc.com's list of the top-ranked women for venture capital raised in 2016. The company has plans to scale its operations across the fintech space. Next, for all the problems facing the national economy, Metro Atlanta still manages to have a lot going for it. In what way, you might ask? Well, Patrick Crosby sifts through the stats to find out.